It was a morning show. Soft lights, Christmas decorations, a friendly host. Everything felt safe until Meghan Markle sat down. No one in the studio realized they were about to witness one of the coldest mornings in British television history. No one expected the interview to end early, and no one imagined that Meghan would be the one to stand up and walk out. The studio was calm, almost soothing, muted colors, cozy armchairs, a Christmas tree glowing gently in the corner. Lorraine's show had always been like this. Comforting, predictable, safe. It wasn't a place for confrontation. It was a place for smiles. Lorraine Kelly turned to the camera with her trademark warmth. Today, we're joined by a very special guest, she said cheerfully. Author, producer, mother, Meghan Markle. Applause filled the studio. Polite, controlled, professional. Meghan took her seat with a smile that looked perfectly placed. But to anyone paying close attention, the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. It wasn't relaxed. It was alert like armor. Lorraine leaned forward slightly, her voice gentle. It's lovely to have you here. How are you? A harmless question, the safest possible opening. Meghan paused, smiled again, then answered. I'm well, she said. A brief pause. Though these days even saying well seems to invite interpretation. Lorraine chuckled lightly. I think many of us can relate to that. But Meghan's expression shifted. The smile stayed, but her eyes sharpened, focused, guarded. Lorraine eased into familiar territory. The book, creative work, motherhood, neutral ground. The audience relaxed. The studio exhaled. Then Lorraine crossed the invisible line. You've been talked about a lot over the years, she said carefully. Some of it supportive, some of it critical. How has that affected you? The question was still polite, but now it carried weight. Meghan leaned forward slightly, hands folded neatly in her lap. Her voice remained calm, but firmer. I think the more interesting question, she said, is why people are so obsessed with asking how I'm affected. Lorraine blinked once. Well, our viewers are curious. Yes, Meghan replied. They're curious, but curiosity and judgment often get confused, sometimes intentionally. The temperature in the room dropped, not visibly, but unmistakably. Lorraine maintained her smile, though it was tighter now. We're certainly not here to judge. We're here to listen. Meghan tilted her head just slightly. I hope so. 2 words, but they landed heavy. Lorraine attempted to steer the conversation back. There are still many people here who support you deeply. Meghan smiled again. This time it wasn't gratitude. It was distance. Support, she said evenly, is not the same as understanding. Lorraine's hand drifted instinctively toward her cards. The studio felt quiet. Cameras moved closer. Meghan's face filled the screen. For the first time, it became clear. This interview might not stay under control, and no one had raised their voice yet. But everyone felt it. This conversation was heading somewhere. It wasn't supposed to go, and Meghan Markle knew it. Lorraine had been on television long enough to recognize the moment when a conversation quietly changes direction. This was one of those moments. She adjusted slightly in her chair, still smiling, still composed, but no longer casual. Well, she said gently, understanding often comes from conversation. That's what we're doing here today. Meghan nodded once, a small, deliberate movement. Conversation, she repeated. Yes, when it's actually a two-way street. Lorraine paused, just a fraction of a second too long. She chose her next words carefully. Some people feel, Lorraine said, that when questions are asked, you tend to see them as attacks rather than curiosity. The studio went very still. Meghan's posture straightened, her hands separated slightly, palms resting on her knees. Her voice remained calm, but it sharpened. That framing, she said, is exactly the problem. Lorraine raised her eyebrows slightly. How so? Because it assumes, Meghan replied, that the intent is neutral, and often it isn't. Lorraine kept her tone warm. But surely not every question. I didn't say every question. Meghan interrupted, not loudly, not aggressively, but unmistakably. The interruption landed harder than any raised voice could have. Lorraine recovered smoothly, of course. But there's also a public interest element. You've chosen to speak publicly. You've shared your store. Why? Meghan smiled again. But this time there was no softness left in it. I've shared my story, she said. That doesn't mean I've given permission for it to be reshaped, dissected, or weaponized. Lorraine folded her hands together. Some viewers would say they're simply trying to understand the full picture. Meghan leaned back slightly, eyes steady. The full picture, she said slowly, is usually code for the version that makes me more palatable. A murmur rippled through the studio, not loud, just enough to be felt. Lorraine's expression tightened. I don't think that's fair. Meghan tilted her head again. I think it's honest. Lorraine took a breath. This was no longer a gentle morning chat. She shifted strategy. You've spoken about media pressure, she said. But critics argue that you engage with the media when it suits you, and condemn it when it doesn't. There it was. Meghan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. That argument, she said, comes from people who have never experienced scrutiny as surveillance. Lorraine's voice remained calm. But public figures still deserve dignity, Meghan cut in. And boundaries. Lorraine leaned forward now, matching Meghan's posture. Boundaries, she said, don't always sit comfortably with public accountability. Meghan's eyes flashed. And accountability, she replied, shouldn't mean enduring endless character assassination. The air between them felt heavy, charged. Lorraine tried to soften the moment. No one here is assassinating your character. Meghan didn't smile this time. Intent doesn't erase impact. The cameras caught it. The shift. Meghan's shoulders squared. Her voice grew firmer, less conversational. And frankly, she continued, I'm tired of being asked to explain my existence. Lorraine blinked. That's not what I'm asking. It's what it becomes, Meghan replied. Every time. Lorraine sat back, lips pressed together. For the first time, her smile faded completely. Well, she said evenly, we do have to ask questions. Meghan met her gaze without hesitation. And I don't have to accept the premise behind them. Silence, not the comfortable kind. The kind that makes producers shift behind cameras. Lorraine exhaled slowly. Then perhaps, she said, this isn't the right format for you. Meghan's eyebrows lifted slightly. Perhaps, she said, this format isn't used to being challenged. Lorraine straightened. The warmth was gone now. What remained was professionalism and friction. The interview hadn't exploded yet, but the cracks were spreading, and both women knew it. The silence after Meghan's last remark stretched longer than Lorraine was comfortable with. She had interviewed politicians, grieving parents, scandal-hit celebrities. She knew how to regain control of a room, but this wasn't about control anymore. It was about authority. Lorraine leaned back, crossing one leg over the other. Challenging questions, she said evenly, aren't an attack. They're part of the job. Meghan let out a short breath through her nose. Not a laugh, not a sigh. Something in between. Your job, she replied, doesn't require my submission. Lorraine's lips pressed into a thin line. No one is asking for submission, she said. But respect goes both ways. Meghan's eyes hardened. Respect, she said, starts with not framing someone as a problem to be solved. Lorraine raised an eyebrow. Are you saying you can't be questioned at all? Meghan leaned forward now, fully engaged. I'm saying, she answered, that I won't sit here and be dissected for morning entertainment. Lorraine's tone shifted, less friendly, more pointed. This is a talk show, she said. People watch to hear real answers. Men nodded slowly. And what they often get, she shot back, is rehearsed skepticism dressed up as curiosity. Lorraine inhaled sharply. That's unfair. So is assuming I owe explanations, Meghan replied. The temperature in the studio rose perceptibly. The festive decorations, garlands, soft lights, Christmas ornaments, now felt painfully out of place. Lorraine leaned forward, elbows resting lightly on her knees. Let me be direct, she said. Some viewers feel you present yourself as a victim while maintaining extraordinary privilege. There it was. The word victim hung in the air like smoke. Meghan didn't respond immediately. She stared at Lorraine, her jaw set, eyes unblinking. Then she spoke slow, deliberate, controlled. Pain, she said, doesn't disappear because someone else thinks I should be grateful. Lorraine didn't back down. But privilege shapes pay. Perspective, she replied. And people notice when that perspective feels selective. Meghan's voice sharpened. What people notice, she said, is what they're told to notice. Lorraine shook her head slightly. No, she said, they notice contradictions. Meghan straightened abruptly. Contradictions, she repeated. Or discomfort. Lorraine met her gaze. You speak about privacy, she said, yet continue to share intimate details publicly. Meghan's patience cracked. I share on my terms, she snapped. That's the difference. Lorraine's expression hardened. And the public is allowed to question those terms. Meghan let out a sharp laugh this time, short, humorless. Allowed, she said. That word says everything. Lorraine's voice cooled. This is a conversation, she insisted, not a courtroom. Then, stop cross-examining me, Meghan fired back. The exchange had lost all pretense of warmth. Lorraine crossed her arms. You came here knowing the questions, she said. You don't get to rewrite them halfway through. Meghan's eyes flashed. I get to reject narratives that are designed to corner me. Lorraine raised her voice slightly for the first time. No one is cornering you. Meghan raised hers to match, then stopped pushing. The studio fell into a stunned silence. Producers glanced at each other off camera. No one moved. Lorraine broke the pause, her tone clept. If this conversation is so unbearable, she said, why agree to it at all? Meghan stared at her. Because, she replied coldly, I believe this would be a respectful space. Lorraine didn't flinch, and perhaps it was, until you decided every challenge was hostility. Meghan stood up abruptly. The movement was sudden enough to draw a sharp intake of breath from somewhere off camera. "I will not sit here," Meghan said, voice tight, "and be spoken to like this." Lorraine looked up at her, stunned but composed. "Meghan." Meghan raised a hand. "No," she said, "this ends now." She stepped back from the sofa, her expression a mix of anger and disbelief. "I'm done justifying myself," she added, "and I'm done pretending this is neutral." Lorraine remained seated, eyes fixed on her. "This isn't how professional conversations end," she said quietly. Meghan grabbed her bag. "Neither is constant provocation," she replied. The tension was no longer simmering. It was boiling, and everyone in the studio knew this wasn't going to cool down. For a moment, no one moved. Meghan stood beside the sofa, bag in hand, shoulders squared. Lorraine remained seated, posture straight, eyes fixed upward. Not pleading, not apologetic, calm, steady. The studio felt frozen in time. The festive lights behind them flickered softly, absurdly cheerful against the tension hanging in the air. Lorraine broke the silence first. "Meghan," she said quietly, not unkindly. "Walking away doesn't make the questions disappear." Meghan turned back slowly. "No," she replied, voice low and sharp. "It just means I refuse to keep answering them on your terms." Lorraine nodded once. "And conversat," Ion, she said, "requires both sides to stay." Meghan scoffed. "Conversation requires fairness," she shot back. "This stopped being fair a long time ago." Lorraine stood now, unhurried, composed. "I asked questions," she said. "You answered selectively." Meghan's eyes flashed. "Selective," she repeated. "I answered what deserved an answer." Lorraine met her gaze and decided the rest was beneath you. The words landed harder than any raised voice. Meghan took a step back. "This," she said, gesturing between them, "is exactly why people like me stop engaging." Lorraine's voice remained even. "People don't disengage," she replied. "They withdraw when they lose control." The studio reacted, an audible ripple of shock, then silence. Meghan's face hardened. "You think this is about control?" she demanded. "This is about dignity." Lorraine didn't raise her voice. "Dignity," she said, "isn't fragile." Meghan stared at her, stunned not by anger, but by the refusal to retreat. For a brief second, it looked like she might say something reckless. Instead, she exhaled sharply. "I came here in good faith," Meghan said, "and I was met with judgment disguised as curiosity." Lorraine shook her head. "You were met with questions," she replied, "and questions aren't an attack." Meghan turned toward the camera now. "To everyone watching," she said, voice tight but controlled, "this is what happens when a woman refuses to play the role she's assigned." Lorraine watched her carefully. "Or," she said, "when someone refuses to list." And that was it. Meghan took a final step toward the exit. "I won't be part of this," she said flatly. Lorraine didn't follow, didn't reach out, didn't try to salvage the moment. Instead, she addressed the camera. "Well," she said, steady and clear, "we respect Meghan's decision to leave." Meghan paused at the edge of the set. She turned back one last time. "This wasn't respect," she said. "This was provocation." Lorraine met her gaze without blinking. "No," she replied. "This was journalism." Meghan shook her head slowly. "Then maybe," she said, "you should choose your guests more carefully." Lorraine answered instantly. "Or maybe," she said, "we should stop protecting people from questions they don't like." Meghan didn't respond. She walked off. The sound of her heels faded behind the cameras, followed by a door closing, firm, final, unmistakable. The studio remained silent. Lorraine stood there for a moment, gathering herself. Then she turned back to the camera. "Well," she said softly, "that wasn't how we planned to end today's conversation." She paused. "But sometimes," she continued, "walking away says more than staying ever could." She offered a small, composed smile. "We'll take a short break." The lights dimmed, the camera pulled back, and the cheerful set one, designed for comfort now, felt like the quiet aftermath of a storm. If this moment made you uncomfortable, that means it mattered. Not every conversation ends politely. Some end honestly. If you enjoyed this story, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next moment everyone will be talking.